met her husband first and knew that I would love her, because just the way he spoke about her. But I really knew that she was like one of my best friends when I hosted this like big clothes swap, do you remember this? At my house, and everyone had to bring, like if you brought 15 items, then you could pick out 15 items, right? I should do that sometime here, that would be way fun. So I hosted this at my house, and we laid out, you know, in this back bedroom was shirts, and this back bedroom was purses, and this was shoes. And we sat down kind of at the end of the night to show each other what we got. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're not gonna believe how cute this shirt is, look. And she's like, that was mine. And I was like, oh my gosh, no way. Okay, but I got these shoes, and she's like, those were mine. And so literally all of the 15 items that I picked were hers, and her pile was all that I gave. And I was like, why did we even do this? We could have just done this, just you and I. So she has 2 sons, a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. She's been married for 9 years. She works on staff at Kensington Church, and she does with their global department, and they do short-term trips. She's incredible. She's the little sister I've always wanted, but in the same, I look up to her so much because she runs after the Lord so hard. So I'm so honored to share with you this morning, Laura Korn.
So Kelly asked me for a picture of my family, and I feel like I could give you a really good post one, but it would not be true to who my family is. So that my husband is, as you can see from that picture, is really energetic, really crazy, kind of funny, and I'm usually annoyed by him about 90% of the time. So, and then those are my two little ones. Everyone always thinks that they're twins. Because my 3-year-old is just so tall, but they're, like she said, 6 and 3. And so I'm really lucky that I've got this family. I told the women in the back earlier today, I was like, this is like really refreshing to be around all women, because I'm always the odd one out in my family. So it's really special to be able to be here with you guys. It's just such a sweet community that you have. I'm really lucky to be able to share with you. So I want to show you this picture that somebody sent me. So if you can look at it, I'm talking about offense today, or being offended. And there's this picture that someone sent me, and it was so ironic that it was sent to me on the time that I'm supposed to talk about this. This is the 1300s, I'm dying of the Black Plague. 1800s, I'm working 16-hour days. 1900s, I'm off to fight war. In 2000s, I'm offended. And some of you are probably offended that I just showed that picture. But I feel like that's where we're at in our generation now, where everything offends us. And as I was thinking about being offended, I was thinking through my thoughts and what are the things that are kind of pondering in my mind, or where my feelings or emotions are. And I noticed that I get offended all the time. And then when I thought about that, like I'm now offended that I'm offended. Like it just became all of this crazy, downhill spiral of we get hurt, our feelings hurt all the time. Whether somebody looks at us funny, whether a friend of ours doesn't respond to a text message, somebody cuts us off like in the parent drop-off line, like that's for real though. I mean, for real. I live in Troy, and this is totally a side story, but I live in Troy, and there's an elementary school that 2 parents were like throwing down over a parking spot, and I just thought, we have assemblies about bullying and our parents are fighting over parking spots. Anyways, but we have those situations in our life where we become so offended over things that don't seem like they should be big deals, but they are. If our kids don't like something that we made for dinner, our family fails to meet our expectations, we immediately get offended. And Jesus warns us in the first book of the New Testament that we will be offended. It says in Matthew 24:10-12, then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another, and because of this iniquity shall abound. The love of many shall wax cold. The love of most people will grow cold. And it's so sad to think about it, because if you think about how we handle our offenses right now, if we don't talk to them, we begin to talk about them, right? I see it everywhere. Like social media has become a space where if we want to vent about something and then it offends somebody and then somebody lashes out, or you know, in parent circles or in women's circles or in our families, and we are getting our feelings hurt constantly. And what happens, at least what I've seen in is I begin to isolate from people as opposed to just stepping into it with them. So as I was praying about this, I was thinking about a story that that made me think about when I was most offended. And it brought me back to about a year ago. My mom was coming to visit me. I was about to leave for a trip. As Kelly said, I work in our global department at our church, and so I travel a little bit around the world, which is incredible. But I was about to leave for a trip, and so my mom came to visit me. And my mom and I have, it's been a challenge, just our relationship, and it's gotten better, but it comes with a lot of challenges. I'm sure many of you have those same things sometimes. But my mom and I were chatting, and she was looking at herself in the mirror. She's preparing to go someplace, and she starts talking about how beautiful my sister is, how thin she is, how lucky she is. And she looks over at me and she says, "Your sister is so lucky that she doesn't have a weight problem like we do." And I was like, "What?" Like, weight problem? I mean, I know I'm not like Giselle Bündchen, but I feel like, you know, I'm not, whatever. And so, but I didn't think that I had that. And what it had done is it had planted this seed in my heart and in my mind, and immediately I was offended. And it's all I could think about. So I'm about to leave and lead these people through this mission critical thing where they're sharing, you know, the love of Christ with people in Cuba, and all I can think about is that thing that my mom said. And how many of you have experienced that, where somebody has said something, and it could be something super small, but it's all you can think about? And then as you start to think about it, it grows. You get more agitated with them. You get more angry. You get angry at other people. You're getting angry at your kids, and it kind of grows into this big thing. And so I was looking up the meaning of the word offense, and the Hebrew meaning is to stumble. And what was interesting about that is, if you think about it, most people don't stumble over like boulders, right? Like you either run into it or you go around it, but you don't stumble into it. What you stumble over are those small rocks, those small little comments that you can't receive, that kind of maybe will touch your pride a little bit, that feed into an insecurity that you might have. And as these paths build up in our life, there's these certain character traits that come up. So I brought this diaper bag with me because I feel like that's kind of appropriate where we're at, right? But if you think about it, we've got all of these rocks here. And each rock represents something small. So if you think about your day and how many times that you're offended, like, oh, my husband didn't recognize that I got my hair cut, you know, or my son hated the dinner that I made, or someone didn't respond to a text message that I made, or my mom said something super offensive, my boss didn't give me credit for something that I thought that I did, or someone looked at me funny, you know, we've all been there, you know, or the teacher didn't, you know, respond to something about our kid. So as we do this, it fills up, and the bags and the weight that we carry around gets so heavy. And as we're carrying it, we're getting angry that we're carrying the weight because it's heavy, it's annoying. So then we start to complain. We start to get insecure. We start to have a pity party for ourselves. We start to get bitter. We start to avoid people. We start to manipulate. We become narcissists in some ways, where we're only thinking about ourselves. And what made me kind of struck me really hard in this, you know, this past week is, it's like, if I would just get rid of some of those things, or just let some of those offenses roll off, I wouldn't be carrying around this huge weight with me all the time. I think as moms, especially when you're around other moms, you're comparing yourself, you're already insecure about this little human that you're supposed to take care of, that you don't know what the heck they're doing, you know, and you're just trying to love your kids. You're just trying to do the best thing for them. But some little comment of like, oh, you know, I grow my own food in the backyard. And they're like, well, I just bought mine at Kroger. You know, like those little offenses feed into the insecurity that we have. And so, like I said, you become insecure, you complain. You talk negative about that person to everybody else, but not to the person. And what happens is we start to become super sad, super, you know, jaded to the world and to people, and we're afraid to dive into relationships with people. And that would be one of my questions for you today is, do you see any of these character traits in yourself? Is there an offense that you're carrying around in your backpack, in your diaper bag, in your purse, in your heart that's just weighing so heavy? And it's something small. It's not a big boulder. It's a small comment. You know, when my mom made that comment, I became so bitter. My relationship with her suffered. I talked to everybody else about it, but never had a conversation with her. And I became incredibly insecure. So instead of saying, God, is this true? Is this something that you say about me? Instead of bringing it to him and then saying to her, when you said that offended me, I let it build and I let it grow. So this is not how we want to live our lives, nor is it how God designed us to live. Because I don't think that God creates this beautiful person out of you, that you have this beautiful family, and he designs for you to be unhappy and insecure and angry all the time. I think that's what Satan wants for us. I think that the enemy wants us as women especially, like I feel, someone told me the other day, this is the time of the woman. We have women who are speaking out about things, they're having a voice, and being a woman can mean whatever you want it to be. And so the worst thing that we can do in this time is to divide. We need to unite together and encourage one another, like Kelly was talking about with your elephants, finding your tribe of people to lift you up. And so what do? How do we get rid of these offenses, or how do we allow them to just kind of roll off of us? And so we looked how Jesus handled it. So first, pray and forgive those who have offended you. In Matthew 5:44 it says, but I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so you may be the children of your Father who is in heaven. It's really hard to stay angry at somebody that you're consistently praying for. You know, there have been seasons of time where like my husband has said something or has, just been in a mood, and I'm just like, I'm super like over you right now. I don't want to talk. But as I start praying for him, my heart softens for him. I'm not as easily offended by the things that he says to me, because most of the time, if we think about it, the offenses that someone has said to us have nothing to do with us at all. They're carrying around something in their heart that's hurt them, and we're just kind of lashing it out on other people. Jesus modeled that for us on the cross. As he was dying on the cross, he says, forgive them, Father, for they don't know what they're doing. I mean, he was offended the worst, He did nothing wrong, but he was spit at, he was beat, he died a perfect life, and they still killed him. But even in that time, he said, forgive them. He had empathy. Forgive them, Father. They don't know what they're doing. The second thing is, bless those who curse you. Luke 6:28 says, bless and show kindness to those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. I heard this analogy the other day. I have boys, so I feel like any kind of ninja fighting analogies kind of just mean something to me. But someone was telling me about this Bruce Lee, analogy where Bruce Lee talks about how sometimes the energy, we have to reverse it. So if someone's coming at you with a punch, you almost have to take the energy to bring the punch even stronger back. And so what that means to me is like, so if my mother were to say, or for offending me, I would say, well, you think I have a weight problem? I think you're beautiful. Can you imagine what that would do to somebody? Just to encourage them? We're constantly, at least in our heads, we're critiquing every little thing that we're doing, and we're listening to the critique and the offense of other people. But if it would just start being a language that we have of just encouraging one another and using that opportunity to, it would totally take someone off guard. Like, oh, I didn't realize that that was offensive. Or thinking about what we say before we say it. It's so hard, but it does so much. Encouragement is such a blessing to people. At least for me, you could give me whatever you wanted, but just encouraging me as a mother, as a wife, as a daughter, is so huge. And I think for a lot of us, it would change the way we live our life, because if we walk around like the things people say about us that are encouraging, you are a different person. But if you walk around in those lies and that false identity of like, oh, I'm a bad mom, I yell at my kids all the time, my husband doesn't like me, or whatever it is that you're saying, you live like that, as opposed to living out the words that God says about us and what others can sometimes say about us. The other thing is discovering the root of the problem. So when somebody says something to us, maybe ask yourself, and I have to do this all the time, why am I offended? Is there truth to this? Is this pricking something that is maybe affecting my pride or something that I say about myself? Or is it completely not true? Like, is it something that somebody said flippantly and it's not true? But will it reveal where I have an insecurity or a struggle that I just haven't dealt with yet? Or it's maybe just asking God, like, God, what does this mean to you? And if it's not true, then you can let it roll and just let it go. Ask God if there are areas in our life like this that are not of His nature and His character. So if someone's saying, something to you and you're like, immediately, like, oh, that kind of hurts, that stinks. God, what do you want me to know about this? And if it's nothing, then just let it go. We don't ever have to take everything that somebody says to us. I always think about, like, when you go on vacation and your mail kind of like piles up in your mailbox, you go and you come back from vacation, you're like, oh, I gotta get the mail out, and about 95% of it's like ads or mail that somehow has somebody else's name on it. But you don't bring that into the house, right? You just throw it out or put it in your recycling, because once you bring it in the house, it just kind of sits around, and then you're angry that it's like, why is this on the table? I didn't want this carpet cleaner added or whatever it is. So getting rid of it, don't even take it into the house. If it's not meant for you, don't take it personally. Some of it too is discovering that we are wounded people, and that's okay, and that's great, because Christ was wounded. Some of the greatest stories for me and some of the greatest relationships have come out of sharing in each other's woundedness and each other's pain. It gives people the freedom to be themselves, of saying, hey, this morning sucked. My kids didn't get out in time. I was screaming at them all morning. I packed them peanut butter and jelly for the 80th day in a row, or whatever that looks like. Just being honest about the pain that we have, or giving people permission to be who they are in their pain, because that helps you empathize with them. We all have pain that we're walking around with. We all have wounds that we don't understand about one another. But if we realize that when someone's coming to us and they're talking to us, that they have pain too, it helps you to kind of soften the things that you're thinking. Receive a new heart. So in Ezekiel 36:26, it says, I give you a new heart, put a new spirit in you. I will remove the stone heart from your body and replace it with a heart that's God-willed, not self-willed. I'll put a spirit in you and make it possible for you to do what I tell you to do and to live by my command. Putting our trust in Christ removes our cold heart and replaces it with a new one. But to do that, you have to believe that God loves you and that He's for you. I think there are so many times, at least for me, I've been struggling with this the last week or so, honestly, which is ironic that I'm talking about this. I've been offended a lot. But in my job, I feel like I've had a lot of people come to me with opinions or things that I should be doing differently. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, God's looking at me that way. Oh, you need to do this differently when you parent, or you don't do this, you need to cook better, you need to do this, or all of these different things that come to my mind. And I have to really think about, who is God? God delights in me. God sees the beauty in me. He desires good things for me. He loves me. And so when you can believe that with your heart and know that God is for you and not against you, you can receive a new heart. And not walk around with this cold bitterness in your heart that was never intended for you to be like that. And finally, when possible, reconcile. And that is one of the hardest things to do, I think, sometimes. Because our reconciliation doesn't mean that now you're best friends with that person. There are a lot of people in my life that have done things or have said things to me, or I've done to them, that just because we've talked it out doesn't mean that we're going to be best friends again. Or that relationship is just going to somehow be something special. It just means that you're reconciling the wrong, that you're talking about, hey, this offended me, and I didn't mean to, I know that you didn't mean to do this, but I'm telling you how, and I don't want to be angry at you. And then just letting it go so that you can move on in your life and not carry that person with you. I did this Beth Moore study really early on in my Christian walk, and I think it was called Breaking Free. And she talks about how when you can't forgive somebody, it's like dragging them like a ball and chain from your ankles, from your arms, from everything. And the funny thing is, they don't know they're being dragged around because they're walking around like, oh, this is great, this is awesome. Meanwhile, you're like, this is awful. Like you're carrying them around. You think about them all the time. You think about that offense. You think about that thing that they did, and they're not even caring. They're walking around like nothing happened. And so Philippians 2:4 says, think of others more highly than yourself. That's so hard to do sometimes, but it's the right thing to do. when I'm with people, this is something that I'm trying really hard to do, is when I'm with someone, asking them, God, show me how you see them. God, how do you see that person? And sometimes even saying that when you're with them, like, you are such a good mom. You are this, whatever you may say, this is so great. I love your heart. I love how you speak to people. You're so encouraging. Like, can you imagine for you when you have a bad morning or a bad day, if someone just came up to you and authentically shared something that they see in you, what that could do for the rest of your day? It would change everything. I think for me, a lot of the times, like, I can focus on all the things that are going wrong in my life, and sometimes even in other people and myself. And if I could just stop and see, like, how does God see this situation? How does God see this person? Because he doesn't look at you as broken. He doesn't look at you as a failure. He doesn't look at you that you're not doing enough. You are enough. God made you in his image. You are beautiful women that he gave you your child because he believes in you as a mother. He believes in what you can do. And I feel like we have to start believing that, and we have to encourage each other in that too. Like, you are a good mom. Okay, you might choose different paths. Some people might homeschool, public school, private school. We're all trying to love our kids. You know, you grow your food, you buy your food, you get organic, you give mac and cheese every day. We're all trying to love our kids. And you know, we're all trying to do the same thing. And so loving one another because we know that God loves us so much. A couple of years ago, right before we moved to Florida, my husband and I were about ready to move from Michigan to Orlando. And I was having a bunch of like hormonal issues. Like, I couldn't, this is probably TMI, but whatever, we're all women here. So, you know, I was menstruating all the time, and I was just having all these different issues with my skin, and so I'm like, what is going on here? I probably bought like 100 pregnancy tests because I was like, seriously, what's going on? And went and got some testing done, and right as we were moving to Florida, I got a phone call from my doctor, and she said, by the way, you have something called polycystic ovarian syndrome. And this is her words, you will never be able to have kids. And immediately it was like soul crushing for me. Because I thought, one, I don't like how you just said that, so I'm offended. But what it did is it struck something deep within me, that this desire that I had, or this insecurity that I had, and it created this wound. And immediately I just pulled away from people. Because people, you know how you are, like as soon as you get married or when you're in a relationship, people are asking, like, when are you gonna have kids? Or after you've had, like, you know, you leave the hospital, and they're like, so when are you gonna have your second one? You know, there's always those questions about, you know, when you're gonna have children. And I felt like I was getting more and more bitter every single time someone would ask me. Like, so when are you gonna start having kids? When are you gonna, you know, whatever. And immediately, like, deep inside my heart, I'm just thinking, like, this is something that I can't control. And so just through a lot of people praying for us and started changing my diet, and just really a miracle that God did, I was able to get pregnant with my oldest and went on to have another child. But what I realized is, instead of being offended by some of the wounds and the scars in my life, what it did is it opened up a door, because how many women struggle with that? So many. Like, as soon as I started sharing my story about my pain and just even how I felt like I was treated by my doctors, women would just come into my life and they're like, I'm really struggling with this. I feel like I'm trying so hard. We tried everything. We're running out, like all of this stuff. And it created this community with me. One of my really good friends struggled for 5 years. Her and her husband tried to have a child for 5 years and struggled through this. And it was so incredible how God used that huge wound in my life to walk alongside her, because I had been there. I understood it. And she knew that I understood it. And just this past September, she was able to have a baby. And so it was just beautiful just to see God's miracle work in me, how he can use that for other people. And so that's the thing that I would challenge you all today, is that remember always that God is working in you to do something good for you, but for others too. And if you know his goal is to create likeness of Christ in you, then no weapon formed against you will prosper. No weapon. You will possess an unoffendable heart of Christ. And it's so hard to have, and I'm still working on this. Like I said, I talked on the phone to Kelly a couple of days ago, and I was like, I'm struggling because I'm talking about how to have an unoffendable heart, and I've been offended for the past 2.5 weeks. But it's something that God's revealing in me of like, I'm valuing the opinions of people too much. Or I've got some things in my life that I need to release to Him, that I need to give to Him. And so today, before you guys get in your groups and talk through some of these questions, I just wanted to pray. And what I want you to do is just to close your eyes. And allow yourself to imagine. Just so if you think in pictures and words, whatever that is. But I want you just to kind of open your creativity, and we're just going to pray. And say, Father, we want an unoffendable heart. We want to be like Jesus and just to let the offenses roll off of us. We want to release the offenses we've taken up and justified in thinking we have a right to hold on to. So in Jesus' name, to receive a new heart and a new spirit right now, God, would you show each and every one of these women what the current state of their hearts look like. Give them a picture of what their heart looks like, Lord. And once you have that picture of your heart, imagine Jesus at the cross and take your heart to Him. Jesus, take our cold hearts, our hurt hearts, our bruised hearts. We don't want them anymore. We want to receive your heart, a new heart instead. Please exchange that for us in Jesus' name. And so, Father, with these new hearts that we have, would you reveal to us with spiritual eyes where we've been offended? Whatever thoughts come to mind, where have you been offended? Jesus, we ask that you bring that person to our minds that maybe we need to forgive. And maybe show us the reactions of things that have been offensive to us. And so with this new heart in your heart, release the old, release the people, release the words, and just hand them to Him. Father, we want to forgive those who have offended us. And we ask you now to give us a picture of them in our minds, how you see them. I declare over each and every one of you today, in Jesus' name, a blessing over all of you, that the ugly words that people have spoken to you and about you, that they would just wash off. That you know that you are loved by the King. That you know that you are a good mom. That you are a good wife. That you are beautiful. That you have purpose. That you are enough. That you are loved, that you are seen, that you are heard. And I pray, Jesus, that you would fill the holes they're feeling right now. Fill them with your love and your spirit, Jesus. And I pray that they would walk out of here today with a newfound confidence in you and knowing no matter what people say, no matter what they say to themselves, Lord, that you love them. God, I ask all these things in your name, Jesus. Amen. And so I would love for you guys at your table, there's a couple of table questions. You know, some of them might be kind of hard, but I would really encourage you just to dive into them and get it out there. And so thank you so much for letting me share with you today.